Victory for the Trump administration. The Supreme Court sides with an executive order to end temporary protected status for some Venezuelans. For insight into what this ruling means for the broader immigration landscape, we're joined by Luis Cortes Romero, attorney at Novo Legal. Luis, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, so Luis, I wanted to start with the effects here. This is affecting 350 Venezuelans. Do they have to leave the country right away?
They do not have to leave the country right away. What the Supreme Court did is that they allowed the administration to end the program for 350,000 Venezuelans and putting them at risk of deportation while the legal challenges continues in the lower courts.
So the legal challenges, are they going to have to come from the folks who are who are having their TPS removed, or is this going back to the lower court in the overall case that ended up in the Supreme Court in the first place?
There's still the lower courts. The challenge to the revocation of TPS is still moving forward. What the Supreme Court did is that it's allowing the Trump administration to go ahead and revoke the TPS for Venezuelans while the litigation is ongoing. So while the end of TPS right now doesn't mean that at the end of the day TPS will ultimately be revoked, it's not a good sign.
All right. When you have TPS, temporary protected status here, you're allowed to work in this country. So with this ruling from the Supreme Court, does it affect the working status of the people that are already here and that this would affect?
It absolutely will. So the temporary protected status is set to expire in a few months. And so the Trump administration has decided to end and revoke TPS for Venezuelans and not extend that program. So each day that goes by, Venezuelans are going to be losing the temporary protected status. And so the amount of workforce in California and in the Bay Area is going to get exponentially, the people who are losing their work permits is going to get exponentially bigger as the time moves forward.
Right. So they're going to be here in, let's say, California with no work because their work, the permits that allow them work has been revoked. That means you have people that probably are going to be on social services, that type of thing?
Well, you know, the individual circumstances is going to be really dire. What we know is it's going to cut off their lifeline in order for them to work. And so many immigrants aren't eligible for social services. California does have a pretty generous social service program for all of Californians, but there's still a lot of people who are not going to be able to qualify. And so what we're going to see is that we're going to see a hundreds of thousands of people just kind of suddenly out of work and not without the ability to support themselves. And this is a further effort of the Trump administration to try to push people out, to make things so difficult that hopefully people just leave on their own, and that's what the Trump administration is hoping for.
If I'm not mistaken, the lower court before this case ended up in the Supreme Court, the judge ruled that he did not want to pull the TPS status, that the Trump administration's executive order was not enforceable because of the effect it would have on this community, right? The job losses from people not being able to work, correct?
That's correct. And what the Supreme Court ultimately decided this time around is that the challenge of the Trump administration is unlikely to succeed. Now, they haven't made a full decision on it yet, but they're saying because it's unlikely to succeed, the challenge to President Trump's decision to end temporary protected status, that they're going to go ahead and allow the government to start ending the program. So it doesn't look good for those challenging the Trump administration's actions, because it was an 8-1 decision. The only one who dissented on it was Justice Jackson, but the other 8 justices, including the more liberal justices on the court, had agreed that the challenge against the revocation of TPS is unlikely to succeed, and so the Trump administration can go ahead and just start ending the program now.
All right, and keep in mind, we have the 350,000 people, Venezuelans affected now, but there are another 250,000 Venezuelans that are affected. Their TPS status expected to expire in September, and we're talking about people who left Venezuela. There are anti-Maduro groups here, people among them, so they definitely could considerably run into issues. Maduro, of course, winning a 3rd term in Venezuela. The Electoral Commission there approved it without providing any evidence that he actually won the election, and that's part of the problem why so many people have left the country in recent years. Luis Cortes Romero, immigration attorney at Novo Legal, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.